Hello again, friends. This is our next chapter in my MLM journey. And this is number 6. I didn't look. Well, in the title, I'll have the number. And the last time I shared with you the MLM I was in was PSI when I was living in Salt Lake, Utah. I will put the link in the description box so you can go back and watch that. That was in October of 1983 when I got my wisdom teeth extracted by using that program, the dental program. I stayed in that program until March of 1984. I was still living in Salt Lake, Utah. I was working 2 jobs, not saving money. I was trying to go, at this time I was 21 years old. 1983, I was old enough to go on a mission for the Mormon Church. At that time, women went when they were 21, and usually they went because they didn't get married. That was the way they looked at it, was women go only because they don't have anything else to do. That was the attitude. It's changed now because they're desperate for missionaries. They've lowered the age, I think, to 19. Men can go at 18, and they used to could go at 19. But anyway, I had gone to my bishop at the church. He's the leader of the ward we go to put my mission papers in. And he asked me, he looked at my finances, because they always ask you, because when you go on a mission for the Mormon Church, you're paying for it. They send you where they want you to go. You don't get to pick, but you're paying for it. If you don't have enough money to go, other members will pitch in to pay for it. So my bishop he sat down and looked at my finances with me, and he says, "Laurie, your life's a mess." Because at the time I was working 2 full-time jobs. I was working at Stokes Brothers Audio Electronics. They were a franchise that was in the Salt Lake Valley back in 1983. I was working in their customer service department, answering phones, answering questions. And it was seasonal. I knew that after the holidays, I probably wasn't going to have that job. And I didn't. They only had 1 opening for a permanent, and they gave it to a single mom who really needed the job, and she was really good at it. But then I worked graveyard shift at Noggles, which is a fast food restaurant that started in my hometown, Riverside, California, and that was actually my first job when I was 16. But I went back to work for them, graveyard shift, just because mainly I loved the food. Food was really good for fast food. It was kind of Tex-Mex. Well, it was Southern California. Tex-Mex, however you want to call it that. Burritos, tacos, tostadas, and then burgers. But the food was really good. They had a really high quality standard for their food, and a lot of their stuff they made from scratch. So I was working there in graveyard shift, and I really liked working there. It's a great crew, and I got paid pretty good for it. But 2 jobs, I was crazy. But actually, I think I just worked for them 30 hours a week. And then once the new year came, 1984, and the lady at Stokes Brothers was hired for the 1 permanent position, and I was out of a job, I was hired on full-time at Noggles. They wanted me for 40 hours a week because they liked me and they liked my work. But the thing was, if I was to go on a mission, I should have been saving my money, because it costs money to be on a mission. And you have to buy clothes to go, nice business-type clothes. And my bishop sat down and he said, "Laura, your life's a mess." I owed money, which is, how do you owe money? I didn't have credit cards. I didn't have a car payment. In fact, my car didn't even have a heater that worked. It had broke. It was a 1965 Buick Wildcat. That was my stepfather's first wife's car. And the heater had broken out. So I had to wear like coveralls, insulated coveralls, just to drive from my apartment to work. And I was renting a room from another lady that had a 2-bedroom apartment, so I wasn't paying that much. So it's like, where was my money going? Well, I was going to Loverboy concerts. I loved Loverboy, and they were really popular at that time. And they came to Utah. I saw them in the Salt Palace. It was the old Salt Palace. And then I went all the way up to Logan, to Utah State University, with one of my friends from work. We went and we drove up there to go see them again because it was, which album was it? I can't remember. But they did a laser show and Joan Jett opened for them. And it was, I don't regret one bit that I spent my money to go see Loverboy and not Save for My Mission because those were so fun. And I don't even think Loverboy's touring anymore. And I don't know if Joan Jett it is either. But I bought a pair of leather pants. I bought some suede booties, elf booties with a cute little chain decoration to go around the booty to go to those concerts. And we had a blast. So I thought, life's meant to be enjoyed. It's supposed to be. I'm saving my money for my mission. I should be able to have some fun. And then I had a Columbia House or RCA, probably both, record club, where you got a record a month. And I was doing that for both of those because I love music. Music's a huge part of my life, and I like having a record collection. Back then, they had cassettes, but you only got records for the record club. It was before, and there was 8-track. There was, 8-track cassettes, records. This was before CDs. So anyway, he says, your life's a mess. You need to get your life in order. And I didn't know what he meant. I did not understand what he meant. So the winter of 1983-84 in Salt Lake was a brutal one where it snowed constantly. And the snow kept piling up. And they'd shovel the snow off the roads, and then there would be barricades of snow, black snow, up and down the roads because it just kept snowing. The sun did not show for like 6 weeks, and people were getting grouchy and cranky because of that seasonal affective disorder. It was affecting everybody. Well, my dad lived in Palm Springs, California at the time with my little sister, and he says, honey, why don't you come down here and live with me for a while and save up money for your mission? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm there. So he come up there and helped me pack everything up and move down to Palm Springs. And this was in March of 1984. And by July, I had become an alcoholic again. Okay, sleeping around with everybody who would give me attention, because by this time, I had been raped when I was 17, the week before my 17th birthday. And I talked before about being sexually assaulted when I was 7, and then again when I was 10. And I hadn't talked about those to anybody. I tried to commit suicide when I was a teenager, 14 and 15 years old. I did talk about that with a counselor in the community that I could go to without my parents' permission. So I didn't talk about the sexual assault. And when you don't talk about that stuff, it internalizes, and then it's going to manifest somewhere else in your life. It's going to come out. It has to. And it was coming out for me and drinking and sleeping around, trying to get attention because I didn't get enough attention from Daddy. My dad was giving all his attention to my little sister because he was raising her. And he raised her well, by my dad. But anyway, by July, Palm Springs, California, it'll get to be 125 degrees in the summer. And your car will be so hot that you can't even touch it. So I'd have to put a bedspread over my car just to touch the handle to open up to get into the car because we didn't have a garage. We lived in an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment with not even a carport. And the car was so hot. And I thought, I can't do this. And I was working at Noggles. I transferred from Salt Lake down there. And I had become a shift leader. They wanted me to become assistant manager at one point. Actually, you know what? I was assistant manager. Yeah, that's right, I was. But my manager was she had replaced the manager that hired me, and she was not a very ethical person. She was a impulsive liar. That's what she wasn't, a narcissist. Because she follows all those characteristics, and she would stab you in the back if she could. So between that and the heat, and then my horrible reputation of sleeping around and drinking, I needed to do something. And so I moved back to Riverside, California, where I'm from. What did I do first? I moved into renting a room from a guy in Sunnymead, California. And that lasted just a few months too, where I met an old friend from church, from high school, who was renting a room in Riverside, and I moved in with her and got this job through Manpower. So I was going from job to job. That was the thing, was I wasn't able to keep a consistent job. And this was probably October. I was looking again at having a side gig to supplement my income. And here I am 10 minutes into this video, and I haven't even talked about the MLM because I have to tell you the backstory of what was going on in my life. My life was a mess. Basically, it's like what my bishop said. And I wanted to do something on the side that was a supplement to my income. I wanted to get married because the whole mission thing now was kind of on the back burner because my life was a mess. And I started going to AA. It's the second time I went to AA to get sober. And I'd gotten sober. But my middle sister, the one that was physically abusing me, she was wealthy, living in Riverside, and she liked the idea of me selling Tupperware again because she wanted to buy Tupperware for her kitchen, and that wasn't the reason I joined. I don't even remember how I went to a party somewhere with somebody probably at work, and the lady that was giving the party was so nice. She was a manager. She was so nice that she and I had this connection. I really liked her, and I liked the way she did her parties, and they had these new colors that came out, and this is what Tupperware was really good at, was every year they're changing the colors to follow trends. And the colors were butterscotch and maroon. Butterscotch and maroon and some avocado-ish. So they're Wonder Bowls. That was their signature bowl collection for storage. Were these different beautiful colors. And I knew because I'd sold it in St. Joseph, you've heard me tell that story already, that if I booked 6 parties in the first 2 or 3 weeks of signing up, I didn't have to pay for my kit. It was $150 I could pick out my own kit. It would be like a hope chest. I could have when I get married later, I would have my kitchen all set up. And I liked that idea. It was very appealing to me. And this lady was really nice, and she was a really good mentor. And because my sister, Sybil, she was wealthy and she was willing to support me, she had a couple parties for me that were really successful parties. By successful, I mean they were like $230, $250 in sales. And there was always nice little gifts that Tupperware would offer for the hostess that got in that many sales. Well, the thing is, though, the consultant has to pay for those gifts. We had to pay for our brochures, the product brochure you give to somebody at a party where they see the products, the order forms, the little game gifts. And I talked about that in my first video. I showed you some of the gifts. We had to pay for all that stuff. And yeah, if you claim your taxes, you can claim those as business write-offs or business expenses. And one thing I didn't know at the time was that you can also claim your gas mileage. Now you can actually claim part of your house as your home office and your taxes. I didn't know anything that well about filing taxes for a business. I didn't know there was tax breaks. I didn't know any of that stuff. But I did really well because my parties, within the first couple of weeks, I paid for my kit. And this was where I really started to consider being a manager, because she was so good, and she asked me, she said, who do you know that would be good doing this? And this was where I learned that there's a whole nother pay structure for people who recruit. And this is where the MLM resembles a pyramid structure or a pyramid scheme, is that there's a lot of my son just poked in the door. I've got the door open because his room doesn't ventilate very well. Yeah, you can close it. Anyway, the pyramid structure thing is based on you recruiting people. And yeah, I could have made a lot more money if I recruited people, and I didn't know that before. Because the manager asked me, she says, your sister's a really great customer. what about her becoming one of your recruits and start giving parties? And I was thinking to myself, but if I recruit her, she would give a party a month for me because she knew a lot of people. Her husband was an architect and made a lot of money, and she knew a lot of people, and she liked giving parties. And she would buy whatever was the newest trend, and what she wanted to get rid of, she'd just donate it to the local charity, and she had no problem doing that. And I thought, if I recruit her as a consultant, there goes away my best customer. And I talked to her about this, my sister, but she did not want to become a consultant. She says, I don't want to be responsible for giving parties every week. I'll give them for you every now and then, but I don't want to do this like that. I don't want to give demonstrations on how to use the product. You'll just give them for me. Okay. So, and I didn't know anybody else at the time who I would think of to get into that. Just didn't. Okay, and so here's the other thing is I was engaged my third time. I was engaged my third time. Because remember I talked about in St. Joe I was engaged and that blew up. I haven't even talked about the guy we weren't officially engaged. We were dating and I sent him on his mission because he didn't want to go. But I told him he needed to go because that's what the church expects of the guys when they're 19. And he went, but because he said he wanted to marry me. And so I was waiting for him. And then I became an alcoholic and started sleeping with everybody. And his family looked at me as dirt. So that was out. So I considered this one the third engagement. And this guy, and I think I'm going over my 15 minutes because this story takes longer because it's setting up the behaviors that I started to notice at this point with my propensity to join in multi-level marketing. Specifically right now it was Tupperware and direct sales based on what was going on in my personal life. So I have to tell you what was going on in my personal life because there was a lot going on. So you heard me say I moved from Palm Springs, I moved to Sunnymead, and then I moved to Riverside. Well, while I was in Riverside with my high school buddy, renting the master bedroom and bathroom out of this house from the single mom, I got reconnected with a guy I knew since junior high school, Byron, and his mother was I called her mom since I was 9 years old. I still call her mom. She was like the mother, foster mom to me that I could go talk to. I couldn't talk to my own mother. I should probably talk about that in another video because that was a big issue. My mom just was not good about talking about stuff. She would get very emotional and just made me feel very uncomfortable. And so Mom, Mariana, I could go talk to. And anyway, I met Byron again after years, and he had matured so much. He was attractive, he was smart, he was intelligent. He was in the Navy on one of those missile cruisers, those nuclear missile cruisers. And I could see how it had changed his life. And he'd really gotten responsible, and we started dating. And he proposed to me. And I said, yeah, let's get married. And we talked about this. We dated for a while, and then I got this permanent, lovely job at a cold storage company. And it was through Manpower, and they hired me permanently because they liked me. I was their secretary. And I don't know shorthand, okay? And I type 55 words a minute. I have to cut these off to do it because they get in the way. But it was the first time I was excited about my job and liked being able to use my brain to help with the things going on in the office. And it was a nice group of people, except one day in the break room, one of the guys he was the foreman, supervisor of the crew that worked in the refrigerated, because cold storage is, extended refrigerated storage for companies, food companies. The guy was married. He was a nice guy. And I think it was his birthday or something. We were celebrating. And he said he wanted a kiss from me or something. And I thought, well, it's his birthday. Sure, give him a kiss. I didn't know he was going to shove his tongue down my throat and totally, not grope me, but like really hug me around my waist very uncomfortably. And I had to like push him away. And I was thinking, whoa, wait, what? you're married. What are you doing kissing me like that? And he said, well, what's wrong with that? I kiss people I like that. And I mean, it kind of sounds like the weirdo, was it the mayor of New York, or the governor that just stepped down because he talked about, well, that's just the way I am, blah, blah, blah. And I was scandalized by that. I was traumatized because I thought really highly of that guy and thought, he'll just go kiss anybody like that. If I was married, I wouldn't want my husband kissing other women like that. What's wrong with him? So, and I didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell anybody at all. But I did have to tell my bosses that I was engaged. And my soon-to-be, my fiance was stationed out of Florida. He'd go out to sea for 6 months and come back for 6 months. And I thought, I've done the long-distance relationship before. I'd had a few boyfriends by that time that I had to were long distance. And I could do it if I had to. And this was in Riverside, California. Well, they got wind of it and they said, Laurie, we just hired you permanent. If you're going to move to Florida, we're going to have to hire a replacement for you. And I thought, yeah, I guess they will. And they were talking about, when are you getting married? We planned on March. Seems like we planned on March. And this was December. The first part of December. And I thought, I'll just transfer my Tupperware to Florida. You know, I'd started over again here when had done it in St. Joe. I'll just start over again there. I'll meet people on the base and do them. So I knew I could do that. Well, the bosses thought it was going to take them a while to find a replacement for me. 2 weeks, and they found somebody. So I was out of a job. They hired her. And my boyfriend comes home on furlough or on leave for the holidays. He says, Laurie, I think neither one of us are mature enough to be getting married. I think we need to wait about a year. And I took that as he was breaking up with me, because I thought, I'm ready to get married now. And I just lost my job because we're engaged and I'm moving to Florida. So now what am I going to do? And he says, I just don't think we're mature enough. Which I look back now, that was a very mature thing to do on his part. No, I sure couldn't see it. You know, 22, well, 21. I was still 21. No, I was 22. I was 22 years old. 22 years old. And I thought, I see what it's done for you with the military. And I also had another friend from junior high school and high school who had become an airborne ranger in the Army, who I'd kept in touch with. And I saw how the Army had been really good for him too. And I thought, you know what? I need to join the military. And that was the end of my Tupperware, because once I joined, gosh, there's a whole story that goes with this. It does have everything to do with the multi-level marketing business, because here I'd lost my job, and so I went back to Manpower to get another job until I could figure out what I was doing. And I wasn't being able to pay my bills. By this time, I'd sold that Wildcat car, and I was driving my mom's old Vista Cruiser station wagon, avocado green with brown paneling station wagon with a sunroof with an 8-track tape. I thought I was big stuff. It was a 1977 Vista Cruiser I'd bought from my mom for $300. That's what I was driving around at 22 years old, a station wagon. And I was still not able to save money. I didn't have money to feed myself. My mom had to bring a goodie box on my doorstep and drop it off to try to help, because she knew I didn't want to take her help, and her husband, my stepfather, wouldn't let her until finally, because his attitude was, if a child moves out of the house, they're out on their own. They don't get to come back and move in. But somehow she talked him into letting me move back, because I went to talk to all the recruiters in the military because Byron told me, he said, don't just join the Navy because I'm in the Navy. Go talk to each one of the recruiters and see how you feel about them. And I went to the Navy first, and they tried to snowball me, selling me on the idea of being on a ship for 6 months. And, oh, yeah, we have all this great stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I could tell he was lying to me. And then I went to talk to the Marines because back when I was in high school, I had taken the ASVAB and I had scored really high. And I wanted to join the Marines because I wanted to prove a woman could be just as macho as a man. So I had this mindset going on. And my dad said, Laurie, would you consider the Air Force? Which I didn't. It wasn't macho enough. When I was in high school, the ROTC program was Air Force. And those guys, I just didn't see them as, I didn't want to be an airman. And I went to talk to the Air Force recruiter because my dad set it up for me. And as soon as he heard I had smoked pot once, he threw me out of his office like I was trash. I was like, really? So it's going to be like that? Okay, well, you know what? Fuck you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And then I can't remember if I had gone to the Army, and I just wasn't impressed. I wanted to drive a tank, or I'd wanted to be infantry. I wanted to do something macho, prove I could compete with the men, because, well, I hadn't resolved the sexual assault, so I wanted to do something to compensate for that loss in my life. And the recruiter laughed at me and he said, women cannot drive tanks. They cannot join the infantry. We don't send them to combat. You're restricted on what jobs you can be in. And I was like, really? So I went to the Marines. And the Marine recruiter was really nice. He was honest. And he told me, it's going to be 6 months before we can get you in a job. And I wanted to be a computer analyst. I performed high enough in the ASVAB for that. I really wanted to go into journalism, but I missed the score. What score is it called? By 2 points to become a journalist. So I become a computer person in administration. But I had to wait 6 months, and I thought, shit, I'm going to have to get a job to hold out. And so I got a job with Manpower, working in a mold press operating factory like my mother had earlier on, working graveyard shift. And I liked it. It was great, but I surely wouldn't want to have to do that. She did that for 17 years. I wouldn't have to do it for a year. But I knew that, okay, 6 months I could do it. And I was still living in my the room I was renting, but I was really needing to move back home, and my mom was trying to convince my stepdad to do that. And I was still doing the Tupperware parties at this point, because as long as I was home, but I was not. I told my manager that I'm going in the military, so I don't know where they're going to send me. So I'll do parties up until I leave. And so I was, because of course now the new year they had new colors come out and new products to try to entice people. Those managers, they have to sell $5,000 a month, and it's 35% commission. But this is 1984. You still, like I said, have to buy your hostess gifts, parties. So I was getting antsy. Oh, and I know what the other thing was I went to the MEP station in San Diego. That's where they go to screen you for the military. And I was honest and told them I'd had those suicide attempts I'd had. And also that when I was 21 and living in Utah, I was diagnosed with spastic colitis, and I had to see a gastroenterologist. And they said, well, we need to get doctor's letters from you clearing you on both of those. And I thought, oh, crap, that's going to take another 6 weeks to get the letters. So I started the process. But in the meantime, I had remembered that the Army recruiter had told me that their MEP station was in Los Angeles. And I thought, what if I went to the Army and signed up and went to that MEP station and didn't tell them about the psychiatric problems or the gastroenterology problems. And I didn't have to get those letters because the Army, they wanted me right now. I mean, really, I was thinking, that there was not some general database that has all the recruits. I was already in the delayed entry program with the Marines. So I was already technically in the Marines. And I didn't even think the fact that there might be a database that all of the branches of the military could access to see if this person who's trying to sign up in the Army wasn't already in the Marines delayed entry program. I mean, it was like dumb. So I was going to go as an MP, military police. My dad was a police officer up until 7 when he got kicked out because of stuff he did on the job with my little sister's mother that wasn't appropriate. And after 17 years, I kicked him out. He was a homicide detective, and he was also deputy sheriff and had been on narcotics. He really screwed up big time. I love my dad, but he was an example to me of how not to live your life. I think the only way he redeemed himself was the way he raised my little sister. He raised her very well. And I could talk about that later because, he wasn't like a loser. It's just some people handle situations in life really well and some don't. He didn't. So anyway, I signed up to be an MP because, again, that was macho, and I wanted to prove to everybody I could do something just as tough as a man. And I show up to the MEP station. God, I've gone double over what I usually do. And I'm not even hardly talking about MLMs, but like I said, the behaviors came out in the MLMs because of what was going on in my personal life. We sign up with business opportunities because we need money. And if our life's a mess, we're going to need money. So I was desperate, and that was why it was so easy for me to get back into Tupperware, because I had done it before. I knew how the drill went. And because my sister was wealthy and she could help support me, that made it that much easier. And the manager being so sweet and helpful and being a really great mentor to me, all those factors come into play. So I get to the MEP station in Los Angeles and they're ready to ship out to Fort McClellan, Alabama for MP training and basic training and MP training. And they said, "You're in the delayed entry program in the Marines because you've got doctor's letters you're supposed to get for the gastroenterology and the psychiatric." And I thought, oh shit, they found out. They sent me home. And I had moved out of my apartment, or moved out of the room that I was sharing with my girlfriend had moved out. It was just me in that room now because she had problems. Oh God, she had problems. But anyway, she moved out and it was just me. It was only $150 a month rent, and I couldn't even afford that. So anyway, I had nowhere to go, and I had my stepdad came to get me. My stepdad, he says, "Laurie, what have you done? What have you done now?" Because I'd lied to him before about stuff. And I backed up the car into a brick wall, and I tried to tell him somebody hit me, and he was like, "No, you backed into something. What did you do?" He could always see through the bullshit, and that made me even madder. That's why he and I constantly butted heads, because he was very strict, and you couldn't pull any bullshit with him. But anyway, he said, "What's going on?" So I told him, and he said, "I'm going to let you come back to stay with us long enough for you to get this straightened up, and then you're back out again." And I didn't let my daughters come back, and both of them had issues. So you're getting special treatment, and I don't ever do that, but I'm doing it because of your mother, because your mother is at home bawling her head off. And I thought, oh, God, that decision I made affected not just me, but it affected my family. Because in the beginning, they tried to all talk me out of joining the military. They said, "With your psychological issues, you're not a fit for the military. What are you doing?" Anyway, even my ex-fiance, when I sent on the mission, he'd been in the Air Force, and he said, "You're not cut out for this, for basic training. What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm going to do this because I felt like it was my last chance to clean up my act and to learn some kind of discipline and self-responsibility, because my mom hadn't been able to teach it to me because she was working all the time. My dad never paid child support. I shouldn't say never. He very seldom did. on my sister Sybil and myself. So he just wasn't there, and he conned my mom into co-signing on stuff for him, and she was caught up in his debt, and that was where my stepfather came in and saved us financially, rescued us from all that stuff that my dad had put my mom through. So she was not able to be there for me to teach me things like how to balance a checkbook. My stepdad Joe, he sat down and did that for me, and how to never get into debt. Don't buy anything on credit. If you don't have the money for it, you don't need it, because there's other ways you can go around getting what you need. I had a car. Yeah, it was an old thing. It was a station wagon, but the thing is, it was mine. I was making payments on it to my stepdad, my mom. I wasn't paying to some car salesman and ruining my credit if I couldn't make a payment. Anyway, so my recruiter sat down and he says, they're talking fraud. They're talking about prosecuting you for fraud because you lied, because you're in the delayed entry program with the Marines. And I told him what the situation was. I said, I'm starving, and my mom had to bring me food because I couldn't buy groceries. I need a job. I can't wait 6 months to get into the Marines. And I was working this job. And I look at it back at now, it's like, where the hell was my money going? And I wasn't drinking. I was going to AA. I'm going to AA now, so I was sober. And I didn't have debt. I don't know what. I might have had some debt from when it was a utility debt from when I was in Utah, and I had 2 irresponsible roommates that really took advantage of me, because everything was in my name. I might have still had that debt at this time that I was trying to pay off. It seems like that's what was going on, because I just didn't have money, and I didn't know how to take care of my money. My stepdad tried to sit down with me, and it was like just bloop, dumb blonde. That's what I was. It was just, and I hate to stereotype that. That's so politically incorrect, but I was just not very smart at that time. So my recruiter really had to go to bat for me, and I'm so grateful to him today that he saw enough in me that was worth going to bat, because he saved my ass from being prosecuted for fraud. But I lost my security clearance, so I could not go in as an MP. He said, we're willing to give you another chance, because the Army is all about giving people another chance. I think I'm going to start crying. My God, I didn't think that was going to happen. And the Marines let me out of the delayed entry program, and he said, okay, so now you're limited on your jobs. And that was when I started to look at what I could get, the best I could get. And I really wanted to go to Europe. My mom and Joe had been to Europe and brought back wonderful souvenirs and beautiful photos of all these wonderful places. And I thought, God, I'd love to go to Europe. And my recruiter got in my contract Germany, so I could go to Germany. And I liked food service, which was being a cook, because they were shift workers. You could work 4 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then you didn't have to come in until 11 a.m. the next day. You could take off and go travel if you wanted to. And there was a cash bonus for cooks, so it's hard work. It was a $4,000 cash bonus. So I had all that, but in the meantime, I had to wait like 3 weeks for them to clear my name to decide if they were going to keep me and not prosecute me. And they did. My grandma, my mother's mother, died in that time, and I couldn't go to the funeral because it was in Kanab, Utah, because because I was waiting for that phone call from the recruiter saying, okay, you're cleared, you can go to the MEP station, because it was going to be like right away. And like the week after she passed, then he called and he says, okay, you're cleared, let's go, let's do this. And I did. And this was in the end of March 1984, and I went into the Army as a cook. So as far as the MLMs go, and of course, while I was living under Joe's roof, my stepfather, remember I said earlier about his attitude about MLMs, I couldn't even bring Tupperware into the house. I had a storage unit where when my mom married Joe, no, that's not true. That was later. She married Joe. All the furniture we had in our house that I grew up in was mine. He actually kept it up on another level of the garage for me. It was later I got a storage unit. All right, so I kept all my Tupperware stuff at Sybil's house. That was what it was, because Joe wouldn't allow it into his house. He did not want anything with multi-level marketing or direct sales into his house, and I couldn't do it while I was living there. So I had all my stuff at Sybil's house, and I told my manager, and she respected my stepdad. She said, that's the rules of his house. You're living under his roof at his mercy. This is it for us. And so I'd stop. I had to stop Tupperware, and then I got the call from the recruiter, and I went into the Army, and I was in Germany for 3.5. My term was 4 years, so I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey for 3 weeks in some experimental fat farm program. They picked a bunch of us out for 3 weeks, and then we went to basic training for 8 weeks, and then I went to cook school for 8 weeks. It was all at Fort Dix, and then I had a week off, and then I went to Germany. And while I was over there, I'm sure Tupperware's over there. I know Avon is, but I didn't know at the time that I could have probably sold Tupperware over there. And if I'd known that, I probably would have tried. But because of my work schedule, I mean, it was very demanding. And in fact, my mess sergeant wouldn't even let me go back to college to finish school, because he said, "You don't have time for that. You're working for me." So that's what I got into for those 4 years. I was out of an MLM. And as soon as I got off of active duty in February 1989, and I went on terminal leave until the end of March 1989, and I was in the reserves, I went straight back into Tupperware. That lady who had been my manager, I couldn't even find her. She wasn't selling Tupperware anymore. So I got involved with someone else, and that will be my next story in my next video, and I promise it's not going to be, my God, 42 minutes, guys, because I needed to tell you all this stuff I just told you was huge stuff going on in my life, and I still had not recognized what not talking to a therapist about the rapes and the sexual assault, what it was doing in my personal life. Because if we can't talk about trauma that's happened to us and we hold it in, it tries to work its way out in some way, and it'll come out in changing jobs all the time because you're not happy where you're at, which was what I was doing, or lying about the being in the Marines kind of thing. And the Army in those 4 years helped me straighten my life out. And you know what I think I'm going to do is I'll do another video talking about my active duty time in the Army, because it changed my life in more ways than I had expected, because I said I went in there to learn about discipline, self-discipline, and responsibility. It taught me so much more than that, but at the same time, there was more rape and there was more sexual assault. And I need to tell you that because that was still part of that journey that really fucked up my psyche, and that took me years to get over it. So I think what I'll do is sometimes this week I'll go on with part 7 of the MLM journey, talking about Tupperware. When I got out of the Army, I was still in the reserves, doing as much duty as they would let me do during the month, because they always have extra allocations for duty, more than just the weekend, your weekend warrior thing. There was always like an extra week of work, so I'd work in there for a week doing my job. So I did, and I sold Tupperware at night. It was after I got off of active duty. Anyway, so I think I'll do that. I'll do this video on that journey with being in the Army, and I'll post all these other videos I've done for you today. So thank you for giving me almost 45 minutes of your time. I've never done a video on here that long. And you know what? You can always pause and come back and watch it. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Maybe I should have split this up into 2 parts, but it's done. And I'm not going to do it again because that was a lot to talk about, and I have other things to do. I'm just going to put it out like it is, guys, and you can comment in the comment section below on this. And if it resonates with you, like, and I almost forgot to tell you to hit the like button. Please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. And thank you for your time, and I hope it's helped, that I haven't just talked in circles. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.